9:54 exactly, and our final interview for the morning is with Yasmin Sooka. She's a former Truth Commissioner and human rights lawyer. We're going to be talking about apartheid charged as a crime against humanity for the first time in South Africa. Long overdue, seeing that the United Nations General Assembly declared apartheid a crime against humanity way back in 1966. And the Apartheid Convention of 1973 made it a crime in its entirety. Yasmin, salaam alaikum, welcome to the program.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so why are we only now charging apartheid as a crime against humanity in 2021?
Well, I guess that's a big question that we should ask of the National Prosecutorial Authority, because from inception, when the foundation and the families of victims during the apartheid era engaged with the NPA, and this was as far back as 2006, we had asked that, in fact, any prosecutions be done on the basis of international crimes and apartheid as a crime against humanity. And of course, as you know, as I've said previously on your program, it's taken us 23 years to get to the point where the NPA is finally prosecuting people. And I think we need to, I'm absolutely delighted that we have the first indictment in this case, the COSAS 4, where the two perpetrators are going to be charged under international crimes, and they're going to be prosecuted under international law. And we have to commend Advocate Malhotra and his team for taking this incredible step, because it has huge implications for the rest of our cases, where we have also been arguing that we cannot charge these crimes as ordinary criminal matters, because to do so would be to infer that, in fact, the operatives who are being charged did this off their own back, and they were not part of a political system which used the apartheid machinery to repress and oppress and, of course, assassinate opponents of the state. And that is why this is important, because the apartheid system was a meticulously designed system where they executed political crimes to protect and sustain the apartheid state. It also involved senior politicians, generals, and senior officials who presided at the State Security Council, where they not only established death squads, but they also made the funding for operatives to operate. And that is where they agreed on who should be targeted and taken out. And we have many, many cases which are examples of this. And that is why it's really important that we're able to build an accurate historical record, which in fact the courts in our country confirm. Because can you imagine 20 years from now, when we look back on this period, if we didn't charge under international law and apartheid is a crime against humanity, our grandchildren will say, oh, these were just people on a private frolic of their own. And nobody will actually know that it was the system, the criminal apartheid state, that was responsible for these crimes. And so this is really important, that we begin to own the narrative of who was actually responsible.
So, Yasmin, we now have this case, the COSAS 4 case. I know that one or two of the perpetrators are Christian Siebert Roerich, a former bomb expert and security branch officer. There's also Ephraim Falapizza, I think it is, a former Vlakplaas policeman. We saying that they didn't act out of their own volition. It was on instruction from top political leaders, etc. A lot of those people, because what also comes to mind is the Timor case. A lot of the perpetrators or the actors in those scenarios have subsequently passed on or are too old or too frail. How is this all going to play out? And when we say it was the apartheid government that was responsible for this, They're not around any longer. Whom do we hold responsible? Who's going to be sentenced? What sort of sentences are we going to be meting out? Or is it just really about being heard and about closure?
I think there are a number of things, and you're raising extremely important points. The one is the prejudice that the families of victims have suffered because of the long delay by the state and the NPA. But nevertheless, there are a number of cases in which we do have a number of perpetrators alive. And I'll give you one example. This week, we're due to hear from the NPA what the response is to our application in the Craddock 4 matter, where we have placed them on terms to make a decision. Now, in that case, we named, I think, more than 15 respondents, and one of them, of course, included Mr. de Klerk, who is now passed on. But there are a number of cabinet ministers who are still alive, and, there are a number of people who are named in that case who remain alive. And so it's really important that we indict them under international law. And then, of course, similarly, we have, unfortunately, with the Timor case, the last survivor, João Rodrigues died. But, there are two remaining security branch policemen, Neville Else and Seth Sons. And in fact, when Judge Billy Motley gave his historic ruling, he actually said that the two of them should be indicted as well. And in fact, since 2017, we have been in discussions with the NPA on why these two men, who many activists will tell you were responsible for their torture, why have they not been charged? This just remains such a mystery. And in fact, it's another case where the family has said we need to put pressure on the NPA. We have another case, the Nakatula Simelane case, where for the last, since 2016, we have been engaged in discussions with them around indicting under international law. And here we've said they need to charge the crime of an enforced disappearance because they don't have a body. And in fact, an enforced disappearance is a continuing crime in international law. It never prescribes, like torture. And so for the sake of the family and for the sake of bringing a closure to this case, it's important that we get it right from the beginning. And we've also said to them how they can do it. So I think there's a real need to bring a lot of pressure on many of these, the state institutions to make sure that they do the right thing. And that is why I have a great admiration for Advocate Malachwa for really sticking his neck out and doing this. This is the first time in the world that anybody will be charged under the crime of apartheid. Can you imagine that after the United Nations Security Council and General Assembly took a decision to declare apartheid a crime against humanity, nobody was ever charged? So this will really be the first time. And that is why it's such an important moment, because we have to own the narrative around our past. And we have to avoid the question of historical revisionism, which certainly is taking place because, if you listen to Mr. de Klerk's kind of deathbed apology, there is not one moment when he says that apartheid was a criminal state. Not one moment did he say to the victims that his government was responsible for authorizing and planning the assassination of their loved ones. And that's really the accountability we need.
And undoubtedly, we need to wrap up, but undoubtedly, Yasmin, this sets the benchmark for the rest of the world, because we know that these type of apartheid crimes are being carried out throughout the world. Whether you call it ethnic cleansing, whatever it is that you call it, but it is apartheid. It's separating of people. You're not good enough because you don't speak the same language. You're not of me, or you're not the same color, or you're not the same religion, etc. So it's all apartheid. So we as South Africa are setting the benchmark. But thank you indeed. Pity we don't have more time to dig deeper into the discussion, but undoubtedly we'll talk again sometime soon. Thank you for your time and go well.
Thank you, and thank you to your listeners and your station.
It is for after 10 exactly. That was Yasmin Sooka. She is obviously a human rights lawyer talking to us about apartheid now being declared a crime against humanity. And on that note, then, we wrap up. Thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed the conversations this morning. Till tomorrow morning at the same time, as always, a big thank you to the producers. Don't forget to mask up, social distance, and obviously sanitize. Assalamu alaikum and Khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.
Breaking stereotypes, moving